Welcome back to another episode of Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-host,
Grandma Gail.
So this week's episode is with Gigi Robinson. She is 23. She talks about mental health, body image, chronic illness, things that, we don't talk about in the media that often, but
And we should.
Yeah, especially when it's like a disability that you can't physically see, but that still affects you daily. And I know a lot of people who deal with that, whether it's like anxiety or some
chronic fatigue. There's so many things. And this poor woman has seen it at the university level, and then growing up, she's had this problem since she's almost, I guess, 10 years old. And she's really somebody to look up to, how she's dealt with these issues about her health and her ability to do physical activity. And she manages. She's certainly a model. She's done loads of wonderful charity projects. And
she has a podcast called Everything You Need Is Within that she puts on Spotify. So hope you guys enjoy. Everyone, we are joined by Gigi Robinson. She's a Gen Zer who talks about mental health, body image, and chronic illness. Gigi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gigi.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
So let's start with your age, where you're from, and your relationship status.
So I am a born and raised New Yorker. I'm 23. I'm about to turn 24. And I am very single.
So funny because sometimes we ask people and they always say very single as if it's different than just single.
Yeah. I feel like maybe the very places an emphasis on the amount of time that you've been single, perhaps. Oh. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Like if you're recently single, you wouldn't say very single.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to school in the city, like high school and stuff?
Yeah, I went to LaGuardia High School of Music and Performing Arts. I studied art. Then I went to FIT for a year here in the city, and I was like, get me the hell out of New York. I want to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that is how I ended up at USC.
Oh, so you went out to the coast. You went out to the West Coast.
I sure did.
Did you love it? Did you actually love it?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, there's pros and cons, but there's nothing like living in LA with 75-degree weather every single day for the most part.
Is that how you got kind of into the media world?
Yes. However, I always people don't know this about me, but I am like a traditionally trained photographer and videographer. So all through high school, I actually entered competitions with my photography, and my work was in galleries all over the world. Like when I was 16, 17, 18, before I graduated. And then when I went to FIT, I did professional photography with a couple New York City headshot photographers. And then when I got to LA, I was like, oh, I want my photos to be on billboards and magazines, blah, blah, blah. And then I joined a social media club, and I was like, wait, I can probably make so much more money if I just jump in front of the camera. So that's what I started doing. And honestly, it was like the best thing for me. I loved it.
I feel like headshot photography is so interesting. I knew this a little bit from when I was like acting. You have to show a lot of personality through a photo, which isn't that easy. Like you think that you're giving different looks, but sometimes you're giving the same look every time.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? I think that's what makes me also a very good creator in general, is my ability to storytell and understand and kind of like read the digital room and see what people can get out of a photo, because I understand what goes into like how to pose yourself, what kind of lighting works, what kind of editing adjustments work. And then on top of that, if I am shooting with people, which is very rare, I don't really shoot anymore, unfortunately, because it hurts my body, which I know we're going to get into my chronic illness, but it's like a moment where something that was like a true passion of mine is something that's burdensome and painful. And I'm like, damn, another thing is being taken away from me. Like, what do I do here? But as I grow as a creator, luckily I'm able to hire people to help me and to shoot my content and to be a part of it. And I think that's all about growing. And yeah. So anyway, I digress.
I think now is the time, if you would tell the listeners what your chronic illness is actually, and what you're doing for it.
Yeah. So For those that don't know, I live with a couple of chronic illnesses, but the biggest one that I deal with is called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder that causes chronic fatigue, instability in your joints because the connective tissue is loose. It causes muscle fatigue. It causes sometimes migraines, like dislocations, just overall pain all the time. And it's actually really interesting because over like I don't know, I was diagnosed at age 10, but over the past decade, like I ignored my pain. And when I got to college, I was doing so much and my body was like freaking out. And it was like, chill, you need to calm down, Gigi. I couldn't make art. I couldn't do my classes. So one of my teachers said, well, why don't you just bring your camera with you to the doctor? And I was like, oh, okay. So then that's how I kind of started documenting my life living as a chronically ill patient. Like, for example, you might know, like, or recognize the sound of that specific paper that they put over the beds at the hospital or like in the doctor's office, or like you look up when you're there, it's like fluorescent light with that like gross tiled ceiling. Like that's something that everybody knows, but it's something that's so familiar to me that I was like, I need to include this. And that can evoke a feeling for everybody. Like most people have a story about being in a place where those sensory things were a major part of a diagnosis or an appointment or whatever. So that was that. And then I started struggling even more when teachers didn't believe me in college. And I know you said, oh, did you love USC? I did, except for the teachers that were jerks. And after that, I was like, let me talk about this on social media. Other people are probably dealing with it. And truth be told, they still are. And that's why I do patient advocacy. And I find ways to talk about it both on a corporate level, on an academic level, on a personal level, on podcasts, as much awareness around chronic illness as we can, and how to kind of treat people with respect, even if they don't look sick.
Was it an easy thing to diagnose, or were doctors kind of like trying to figure out what it was for a little?
Yeah, they were definitely trying to figure it out for a little, but I also live in New York City. I talk about this often as well, because not many people have the privilege to have top doctors around, and not many people have insurance to be able to afford going to these doctors. So I luckily was in a position where my mom works in healthcare and my insurance was great and she knew the right people. And we, got into these pediatric units, and I kept coming back with injury after injury after injury. Within like 3 years, I had fractured my elbow from doing a cartwheel, fractured my ankle, and torn ligaments in my wrist, all within like 3 years. They all took so long to heal because my connective tissue's messed up. And I kept re-injuring. And this one doctor was like, hey, I think you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I would go see a geneticist to confirm. We saw the geneticist. She was like, yeah, this is what you have. But before that, it was like rheumatology, immunology, like orthopedics. And I was like 10, 11 years old. Like I was a baby child that had no idea what was going on. I just knew I was like not well all the time. And I've been to maybe 10, 15 doctors, and some of them have said it's all in your head. Others have said you have problems, but we don't know how to fix them. And that's kind of like
never listen that it's all in your head. If you know you don't feel well, there's something wrong. I don't believe that's all in your head business.
Sometimes though, like
way out for the doctors.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like sometimes I'm complaining about something or mom's complaining about something and you're like, get over it. You're just thinking of like
it's not a matter of, you don't want to dwell on it. You've got the situation. So you've got to figure out how to be positive and move on with the situation.
Right. Well, that's
like Gigi is doing.
That's like the mental health component, which Gigi, I feel like you can talk to also, but like you talk about that a lot on your social media platform. And I feel like a lot of people are trying to do that now in this generation. But I feel like in my grandma's generation, it was definitely less discussed.
Well, we didn't go to the doctors that much. I mean, it was, and we didn't have, many of us weren't they didn't have a health care that was so available to them as it is today as well for many, that they can get the treatment like Gigi was able to do. So it's, it is hard. And some of these very, very esoteric things, which I also believe are current illnesses. I'm not sure that the society had all these illnesses. We don't know if it comes from global warming. We don't know if it comes from the food that we're eating, processed food, which people didn't use. All these things could create some of these problems, and it'll take 100 years for them to really figure out a lot of these immune disorders. And hopefully you've got good people in research that are doing
what do
that.
you do to manage it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. And I think I would 100% agree with like, there simply wasn't research and there simply weren't chemicals in certain foods that your generation were eating like back in the day versus today. Like, you don't even know what ingredients are in. There's rarely a food, including fruits and vegetables, that like have less than 5 ingredients. Like, that's concerning to me. Even if like it includes pesticides or something, right? Like on like, or like the wax on oranges or apples, right? Like, that's something that like we've put on it to make the food more consumable and to last longer and to look better. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I definitely think a lot of holistic medicine practices look into that more and encourage clean eating as much as you can, encourage like looking at and changing your diet and seeing the way that different foods affect you and what goes on. So some things that I've personally done, I eat on a plant-based diet for the most part. Sometimes like around Yom Kippur, my mom will have bagels and lox and I just like can't resist that.
Right.
So yeah, I just
once
go
in
for
a while,
that.
it's all right.
Exactly. And like, I know that I'm going to get a little bit of an upset tummy from that, but it's like worth it because of the family and just like, it's like comfort
exactly
food. So that's really like something that I feel like has helped me doing more plant-based. Like, it's just literally less for my body to process. And I want it to process things as purely and as easily as possible. And that is with plants. I do breath work, actually. Breath work has been something that's really changed my life. I have a breathwork coach who's Wim Hof certified, and he basically walks me through these like 30-minute breathing exercises. And we figure out like what kind of breathing energizes me, what kind like slows me down, what kind gets me creative, like
It's
what makes
interesting.
me
I
really
want to try
cathartic.
that.
Yeah, I'll hook you up. Like, he's so awesome. And it hasn't made anything go away, but it's something, it's like a tool that I use in moments where I can feel myself getting
stress,
anxious or stressed. So like with my Sports Illustrated shoot, which I'm sure we'll jump into, like there was definitely a couple of moments where I literally just like was lying down on the floor and was like, don't talk to me, I need to breathe. And I just like did my 5 to 10 box breaths. I calmed my neural pathways down, calm myself down. I like got ready. And that is something that I do before interviews. It's something I do before I talk to people. Sometimes I even include that in my talks because I want people in the room to be more grounded. So that I love journaling. And then again, on the more like, I guess, practitioner side of things, I do see a lot of doctors. So, which is unfortunate, I guess, but acupuncture, massage therapy, water aerobics. And I also take a medicine called Lyrica, which helps with pain.
Nerves.
So
yeah,
there's a lot. And water aerobics is so fun. I've talked about this before, but
We did that
I love
once.
it.
We
I
did that
love it.
once. Yeah.
It's
so
effortless and your
fun.
muscles don't hurt afterwards. And it's a
Right.
wonderful way. We in the pool, we really
It's
have fun with that.
amazing.
Yeah.
Especially down in Florida. I did it
Yeah.
at the beach club a couple times. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And people always give it a bad rep because they're like, that's like for older ladies. And I'm like,
No.
no, it is so fun. Get in the freaking pool and do the water aerobics.
Good job. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I want to hear about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit. It's so important to see like this representation that we were lacking, I feel like, for so long in the media.
Yeah. Well, another thing back to my photography roots is I had been, traditionally trained. I was trained on retouching, liquefying the body, brightening the face, whitening the teeth, all of the retouching stuff that I think companies are starting to pull back on because they realize how harmful it is to us.
It's ridiculous.
And I understand and I know that kind of stuff is what really affects our confidence nowadays, especially for younger people. I mean, take all these like Instagram filters. It's not just younger people, it's people in general want that instant, like no makeup, and they're putting on a filter that makes their lips plump and their eyes white and their brows, thick. So anyhow, that is what I was traditionally trained in. And I knew about it for a while. I was actually like the photographer on the other side shooting super skinny girls and things like that. And I was like, also not a super skinny girl, and was like, what's going on? Like, this isn't fair. Like, I didn't feel right. It didn't sit right with me.
It's not the whole world is skinny. It's ridiculous.
Right. I think, in fact, the US, like the average size for a woman is 14. Not that that matters, but just to put that out there, that like we're being fed to be skinnier based on a very small percentage of people when the average is much larger. So anyway, I made a project called I Feel Like a Supermodel my freshman year at FIT, and I shot my friends. By shot, I mean with a camera. I always have to clarify in this world where we have gun violence, unfortunately. But I took all these amazing photos of them. I made a short documentary talking about like what empowers them. For some, it was body hair. For some, it was, having like a pear-shaped body. Some, it was being plus size. Some, it was being, like short and plus size, like all of these different kind of body types, and figuring out like what empowers them. So then I got to USC, and I was out in LA, and there was so much going on. I was dealing with chronic illness. I'm 5'4", a size 6'8". Like I have like 32, Beautiful. 34 triple D. Like I've definitely come into my curves more than I have been before. And part of that's because I'm not as active a lot of the times. And like, I do gain weight in certain places, and you know what, that is what it is.
It's just fine.
It's just fine. Exactly. And I'm totally cool with my body, but it's been a really interesting relationship that I've had when it comes to food, medicine, and self-care, and like exercise, because whenever I push myself, I hurt myself.
Right.
And like, typically in the modeling industry, you have to have that six pack, you have to be shaped, you have to be toned. And it's just been like a really interesting journey over the past, like, I don't know, I think maybe 4 or 5 years, especially going to college in Los Angeles. So when I submitted my video, I was like, you know what, let me just like represent these people. I also modeled for JC Penney in the Runway of Dreams adaptive fashion show.
Terrific.
And yeah, it was a really great experience. And to be blunt, like I was one of the people that didn't have a visible like disability. And it was something that I was able to really be empowered by and represent, because so many people, even if they don't look sick, like an adaptive shirt that's Velcroed but looks like it's buttoned is so helpful to somebody who struggles with buttons, right? Who has joint problems and hand problems. So that was like my first step into the adaptive fashion world. I then did a campaign with Zappos, and I modeled for like Adidas, Doc Martens, and a couple other companies with them, and UGG. And the video interview that I did with SI was just like so good, honestly. And I think it's really something that hopefully will make an impact. And I also
will help people with similar problems. I mean, you're not the only one. So this is a very important thing you're doing.
Yeah. And I also chose to not have retouching on my images. Okay. So that's super exciting.
That's a question I was going to ask, of like, what can everybody listening do to kind of stop promoting that like kind of toxic culture, like not edit their photos? Like I know those, I think I was listening to a different podcast you did, but like the what I eat in a day videos and other video trends like that we normalize that are kind of harmful to young generations. Like what are other things like that we might not even realize are kind of like bad?
Yeah, there's a lot of things like this. I mean, I think at one hand, it's like, oh, just let people do what people are going to do, which is, if they want to film what they eat in a day because maybe they actually have an eating disorder and they're trying to eat, and like, if all they can eat today is like having people on the internet hold them accountable, then like that's one thing. But I think the bigger issue is like, how do we create a safe space, and how do we also like make sure that those people get the help that they need? Because relying on validation from other people and accountability from other people who are strangers on the internet who you don't even know to hold you accountable to eat is definitely not good. I think you have to address the root problem, which is like being able to have the courage to talk to friends, to talk to family and say, hi, I'm really struggling with my diet right now. Would you be able to hold me accountable? Or would you be able to support me? Or would you be able to sit down and maybe help me find like a dietitian to look at? Granted, that's a very privileged thing to say because I know most people can't afford a dietitian. So I hope that in the near future, like that industry shifts a little bit and it becomes more affordable so more people can get advice on how to eat for their health, not necessarily how to eat to like stay fit, if that makes sense. And
yeah, it's funny because like one of the most requested videos we get is like, can Grandma Gail post what she eats in a day? And I'm always wondering, like, why do you care what she's putting in her? But like, so I think I could do it in a funny way because she actually only eats like candy. So,
so funny.
but still, it's like I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know like where
Yeah.
that motivation is coming
Right.
from people.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, you know what, people are always, they're interested to see how maybe you maintain your weight or whatever. I don't think it's a
Right.
harmful question,
Mm,
but to be very truthful, everybody's body type, everybody's physiology is different, and how you
Yeah.
metabolize food is different.
mhm,
And unless you have an eating disorder, which is very common in teenagers
mhm.
and men and women, I think that needs, besides an eating nutritionist type of guy, that needs some mental help, because there
Yeah.
is a reason for that kind of anxiety about food, and it's not always
Right.
about your body. It's sometimes a control issue. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on into this area, and I would be the last person, I think we both would be the last person to advise anybody on what we're eating.
Yeah.
But I think that needs, it's a serious issue in today's world, and a lot of it brought about, like you say, because of what people think the absolute body type should be, and that's nonsense.
Right.
I mean,
And
whether you're a
it's like-
size 20 plus, you're
Yeah.
beautiful, and that's
course.
where we have to go. I mean, it's not one size fits all.
I think other videos that can sometimes be harmful are like the more public mockery ones, where like the uncut gems video, I've talked
Mm.
about this a couple times, where like to me, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm not defending Julia Fox. I'm not necessarily looking to, like, she doesn't have anything quote unquote wrong with her. But let's say she was somebody who maybe had a speech impediment,
Sure.
and
I'll have to
that
show you this
created a
video
trend
later.
around
Okay.
it. And so yeah,
she's
like-
not like on TikTok, so she doesn't know. But
oh my gosh, I thought you were a cool grandma. No, I'm just kidding. You
Cool,
are.
but only cool with what she tells me to be cool with.
And you know, I don't think a lot of people realize at large like how quickly they were willing to jump on a trend because it was trending,
Mhm.
regardless of the context. Like, yes, she was high in the video. Like, obviously, she's going to sound like a goofball when she's a little bit high, but in the case that like that was somebody who had a speech impediment, so many people were mocking it, and then they were mocking these faces in so many videos that weren't even like related to the way she did it. It was like almost just like a general mockery, and I personally was like, I don't really like that.
Why
I
would
also-
she do it?
Okay, no, no,
What's
no.
her psychology of going on if she's high?
No. I don't. Was she high for sure?
Yeah, she tweeted about it.
Oh, okay.
Basically, there's this video that Spotify posted from an interview with this woman named
Call Her
Julia
Daddy.
Fox.
Oh.
Yeah, with Call Her Daddy and Julia Fox, and she was saying something about, she was like, were you Ye's muse? Talking about her.
Were you
relationship with
Kanye's
Kanye.
muse? And she said, she responded in a funny way.
Oh,
Like,
She said, well, I was Jeff Safdie's muse when he wrote Uncut Gems, and like everyone
That's how
was
she
like
talked.
making
Right.
fun of the way she said Uncut Gems, and they
Okay.
were like, it was like Uncle Gems, like
Yeah.
whatever. Anyway, that I also think like you pledging for yourself, back to the original topic,
Mhm.
pledging to yourself, pledging to your social media to not use filters, to not like adjust things is like imperative. I am going to be trying my best over the next year or so to really figure out ways that we can try to implement policy on like a filter level to like have that say like this alters and manipulates your face.
Right.
Like,
Should be
be
written
aware.
on the Spotify. Nothing's been
no, on the
on the
filter. Instagram or TikTok.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
yes,
That's fun.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's not for me to judge or have a placement on. I'm not the head of TikTok. I'm not the head of Instagram. Like,
Right. We wish we were,
this
but
is
we're
really
not.
speculative.
Right.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you had good dating experiences where the guys are understanding about certain issues, or is this a big roadblock that you're finding?
This has been a very big roadblock, and I'm very excited to talk to you about this and get some wisdom here, because
good.
I feel like it's been extremely challenging for a number of reasons. Like the first being like the whole chronic illness thing is like the whole, am I desirable? How can I be desirable in the long run? Like, does somebody want to be with a sick person? Right? Like that's like a big block, I would say, not only for me, but for other people. Sometimes people are like, oh, good luck, or like, I hope you feel better. And it's like, it's not like that, but thanks. See ya. And then the other thing that's been really interesting is being an influencer and someone with a public life, and not really knowing who to trust.
When do you bring that up with someone you're dating? Do you feel like you even have to, like?
Yeah, I personally like to, well, first of all, we live in a world where like people definitely look you up before they go out with you. So if somebody went to my page and like didn't gather that I have a chronic illness, I would be like, you're stupid. Goodbye.
Yeah. Because it's written like in her bio, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, it's very like known that if you look at most of the work about me, that it's like, I am a chronic illness advocate and that's what I speak about for work. So there's that. But second to that, I just like to knock it out of the park in the beginning, because then that way it's like, if somebody's nasty, I'm just like, okay, bye. And if somebody's like, I feel like some people can be like, oh, like, that's fine. Like my mom has that, or like not my mom has that. Like, it's just like easier. However, sometimes bringing it up earlier on makes people like not address the challenge of it really in the longer, like
if it's a good person, somebody can address the challenge. There are loads of people with disabilities and difficult issues. And if it's a good person, which is what I always say to Kim, the most important thing is to be kind and good. And if you find somebody who can understand you, know what your shortcomings are, not shortcomings, but failings that you're in your personal life, they'll accept it if they really like you. So it's, I think either you haven't found somebody like that, or it's a little more difficult, but somebody will.
But also has to be someone you like back. Like there's someone who can be understanding. You might like be like, I'm not into you.
Well, I get with this not into you business. I believe that you get into somebody if they're nice, and you like them because they're nice, and you can. I don't think you should force this. This is back to those rom-com movies.
It's not okay, but it's not the only requirement just to be nice. Nice is everyone should be nice.
Right.
Like,
but not everyone should be nice, but not everyone is nice. And also, like, living in New York City, people are extra kind of cold here. Well, honestly, including myself sometimes. But for me, it's more like I'm fed up. Like, let's say I'm out with a friend. This is a really funny example, but I was out with a friend and these random dudes like come up to us and they're like, hey, like whatever, like talking to us. They're like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm in social media. And I try not to talk about work because like, I just like I'd rather not, because it's like a big deal when I do it and it's annoying. And they're like, oh, what company? And I'm like, oh, I work for myself. They're like, oh, like, what do you mean? What do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm an influencer. They're like, are you one of those blue check girls? And I'm like, yeah. Are you one of those guys
when you're
Murray
verified,
Hill?
you have a blue check next to your name.
Oh,
we're not verified.
We're not?
No. How'd you get verified, Gigi? Or did
just
you
like, it's like I woke up one day, but yeah, it's just, it can be frustrating. And sometimes I'm like, oh, when people talk down about social media, I'm like, why do you think that?
You should just say you're a brain surgeon.
I know. Shut everyone up.
Yeah.
I'm a neurosurgeon.
No, but I mean, I'm proud of being a content creator. I'm sure you feel the same, Gigi. Like I'm not gonna lie about what I do. Like I'm excited to share that, but I agree that it's like, when it's the first thing you're saying to somebody, especially in the dating context, they can start like thinking a little bit differently. How are you meeting people now? Like in person or on apps or
Yes, I am definitely getting out and about again to meet people IRL. I was actually just at this.
What's IRL mean, Grandma?
RL?
IRL.
I don't know.
In real life.
Oh, in real life, it's post-COVID.
Yes.
So I want to play a game we play with all of our guests, Grandma Gail's old fashioned dating quiz. So
Oh,
basically, we go through some scenarios and it's like a quick round, and we will
okay.
determine whether you're more of a modern dater or more of a
Oh,
traditional dater.
okay. I feel
No,
like I
there are no
already know
right
my
or wrong answers.
conclusion. I feel like me and Grandma Gail are I'm gonna be more old fashioned, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Okay. Would you rather receive a call or a text from someone you're dating if it's just to say hi?
A call.
Would you sleep with someone on the first date?
Not anymore.
Dating apps or setups?
Set up probably.
Would you move in together before getting engaged or wait until you're like engaged or married to move in?
I would do the before thing.
And who do you think should pay for the date? Should it be one person or should you be alternating?
The guy can pay every time until we're like official.
Mhm.
You are a traditional dater.
Yeah.
Grandma Gail will be your grandma substitute.
Yes.
You're very good.
Gigi, thank you so much for joining us. Tell our listeners how they can follow you.
You all can follow me at It's Gigi Robinson everywhere. And that's like the at symbol, the word it's, and then my name.
Hope you guys liked the episode with Gigi.
Certainly gives you a lot of food for thought, Kim. You realize what people deal with every day and how you can conquer it. And we wish her all the best. And we know that she was very forthright in her answers in her conversation. And we hope everyone out there got something really beneficial from our conversation.
And if you guys are enjoying our podcast, please rate it 5 stars wherever you're listening. Tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram at Excuse My Grandma or on TikTok if you're on there. And we will see you next week.
Bye.